Yes, guys, welcome back to another week of the weekly roundup with myself and Crypto Insight UK. It's we've got a busy week for you. We've got a really busy episode for you this week. Quiet, very quiet last week. This week, it's all kicking off. It's all kicking off, isn't it, Will?
It is, and I was just gesticulating that it's like episode 35, and you didn't say it.
Oh yeah, it's episode 35.
It's
Welcome
episode
back, guys.
35.
We're very coordinated here on the weekly roundup, but we'll start off with this. In fact, let's just give you guys what you can expect in this episode, right? So we've got CPI, we've got FOMC stuff, we've got more SBF stuff. And just a note on that, this is going to be the last week we're speaking about SBF because A, we're sick and tired of speaking about him, and B, I'm sure you guys are sick and tired of speaking about him, and we'll try and keep the content fresh for you guys next week. But
And C is a
there is a lot to
pussy.
speak about regarding him. And then we also speak about Binance, a bit of Ripple, SEC rumors going on there, and then we'll end with some price action as well.
Okay,
Hopefully we don't miss anything out, but without further ado, let's jump straight into it.
I'm ready.
CPI came in at 7.1%, lower than expected at 7.3. I personally thought, I don't know if I mentioned it in last week. I need to make sure I remember what I'm saying, but I think last week I explained why I thought it was coming a bit lower because of the price action of oil throughout of November and how it finished like 8% down, I think it was. And yeah, so that was good. Markets reacted well, rallied like 4% up at some points, but not as much. In fact, let me go to it now. I don't even know if it's going to load because I've got so many tabs open.
Too many tabs.
Too many tabs.
Right.
Look, it's just struggling there, but look, you can kind of see that green candle there. I think it was kind of suppressed because everyone knew the FOMC meeting was coming the next day, and we got 50 basis points, which everyone kind of expected. Nothing really bad there. Comments weren't really hawkish, weren't really dovish. They were just you just kind of repeated, for me anyway, what he'd been saying for the past couple of meetings. So nothing really kind of came out from there. Anything you want to say on them, or should we just move on?
Just quickly is like obviously I have touched on this quite heavily actually in the newsletter, so I'm not going to go too into detail. But obviously now with the 0.5 basis point hike, both the 2-year and the 10-year Treasury yields are now inverted in like with Fed funds rate. Obviously talked about that in the newsletter. But also one thing that a lot of people have overlooked is that the last 4 meetings have been 0.75 rate hikes, and this one was a 0.5. And everyone's still, the market still kind of reacted negatively because there was potential speculation we could do a 0.25 or a pause because of the low CPI, but also coupled with the inverted yield curve. But they still went ahead with the 0.5. But I think people then overlook the fact that this is actually a step down from the 0.75 that we have been doing. So as much as it could be seen as neutral or like bearish for markets, I still think that we're still slowing down whatever anyone says because we've done 0.75 for the last 4 weeks and now we've done a 0.5 and it just highlights where the market is, doesn't it? Like, because it's not the most bullish news you could possibly get, the market thinks it's bearish.
Exactly.
And like I
And
do
it's
think there are
kind of-
issues. Like I'm not going to say there aren't. I don't want to like scrub off the idea that there are no issues because there's actually so many. But I'm just saying that like of this specific news, should the market be bearish? I mean, you could argue both ways, but it seems like every single time you get something neutral that's not super positive, it's bearish. Do you know what I mean? That's the point.
And we saw that in the market anyway. I'm pretty sure the prices went down 3% after this bill came out anyway. So it kind of nullified the positive CPI results, which is a bit of a shame, but it is what it is. Like we expected it to happen like that, to be fair. But we'll move on to our guy SBF before we jump into what's happened this week. Sam Bankman-Fraud himself, whatever you want to call him. The first bit of news that I wanted to include was that he was secretly funding crypto news site The Block. Again, what else is going to come out from this guy? Like shady behavior. Basically, he's had heavy ties with The Block, paying them X amount of money, whatever, to put FTX in a good light throughout the years that they've been posting about them, etc. And just shows a bit more corruption within the space. Not good to see again. It's a bit of nothing news really, but it just shows how easily people can hide stuff within the space at the moment. And how this stuff just kind of like sheds more negative light on crypto, because the fact that it could be happening in traditional finance as well. I'm not saying that, but it's just been exposed about it here, but nothing really kind of came out of it. Just apart from that, it's a bit shady, and but we'll move on from that
Yeah,
and get into the
the
juicy
only
stuff.
reason it's shady is just because he was doing it on the sly. Like
That's what I mean.
Binance do the same thing. Like they own CoinMarketCap, and I'm pretty sure they own CoinDesk or one of the big, or maybe it's Cointelegraph. I don't know for sure which one it is.
Mm.
But like, at least it's public. Like I don't love Binance. I don't necessarily trust them. I don't anything. I'm not advocating them. That's the last thing I'm doing. I'm not advocating anything right now. But the fact that they do it openly is very different to what SBS. Because a lot of people, I know we're going to talk about this, and I'll get onto it then. But a lot of people have been drawing a lot of comparisons, and I think that the biggest one is at least openness in those sort of senses. But yeah, anyway, sorry, let's continue.
That's what I mean. It just literally just makes him look shadier, and it comes at the worst time for him as well, because we've got all this stuff kicking off this week, because we knew this last week that he was going to have X amount of hearings with Senates or House of Law. He missed the Senate hearing. This is like early Monday/Sunday, kind of this broke out, and then what happened after that? He gets arrested. We knew something like this was coming. To be fair, like we said last week, something has to happen on the back of this. Like it's getting to the point where I was thinking, like, is anything actually going to come from this? Is anyone going to be penalised, or is it just going to get brushed under the carpet? But because it's just such mainstream news at the moment, not even just within crypto. Like, for example, I get news alerts on my phone from like Sky News, I think it is, and they were all over this on Monday. Like, I've never seen a crypto story break on traditional news websites like it did on Monday. Like, a couple of notifications from different publications saying uh, FTX, like the way they worded it as well, was like fraudster this, like really painting like a negative picture on crypto, which rightly so because of what's happened. But nonetheless, he was arrested and extradited to the US. So it's not really breaking news in the fact that anything's happened yet. It's just the fact he's been arrested, because, and like I said, everyone kind of knew this was coming. And then on the back of that, just before we do discuss it, we've got the SEC dropping charges on him.
Yeah.
So, like it says here, US charges Sam Bankman-Fried with 8 court counts of wire fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy. And then you got the CFTC coming down on him as well. If my computer loads, apologies for the delay,
Tabs closed.
but they kind of went down again. Here, look, suing Sam Bankman-Fried and Almeida for violating commodity laws, and then they've also got the DOJ after them as well. So it's, again, nothing groundbreaking. People kind of knew this was going to happen. It's just the fact that it's come into light now, and now these are actually official. So, like I said, next week we're going to try not to speak about it, because all that's going to happen now, realistically, he's just going to get charged, maybe a bit of jail time here and this and that. But it will be interesting to see what happens, because obviously, like we said last week, he was a massive donator to Congress. So we'll see how much that has effects into it. But yeah, what do you think about all these lawsuits? What do you think is going to come out of all these?
If we go on to the next tweet quickly, I know you're going to link that into what we're going to talk about. But this is actually the hearing that Sam Bankman-Fried was supposed to be talking at, but obviously he couldn't be there because he got arrested. And Kevin O'Leary, who I've tweeted about, retweeted in this specific post, he's like defending Sam Bankman-Fried, saying that Binance were the reason that FTX collapsed. And I just completely disagree. And I'm very passionate about my point on this. Whether Binance are shady, doing the same thing as FTX, whatever, that's completely by the by, because that's not the point that I'm making. The point that I want to make is, yes, Binance said stuff that triggered the sell-off of FTX, but if FTX had ran a decent book, collateralized accounts, nothing that anyone said or any sell-off that anyone could have done would be able to send them bankrupt, or at least missing multi-billions, we don't know how much yet. So whenever anyone says, but even a massive name like Kevin O'Leary, who's a multi-millionaire, if not a billionaire, who helps countries manage sovereign wealth, he's out here saying that, oh yeah, the reason that FTX are bankrupt is because of Binance. That is not the reason FTX are bankrupt. The reason FTX are bankrupt is because potentially Sam Bankman-Fried conducted fraud. At worst case, it was at best case, he was negligent, and that's the reason that they're bankrupt. It's not because their competitor came and started selling off their token. Yes, that might have like fueled the fire. But if the fire wasn't already lit, then it wouldn't be able to, like, the combustion wouldn't have happened. So I don't understand how anyone can have that stance on it. Like, it isn't Binance's fault. Whether Binance are right or wrong, whatever. Whether what Binance did was right or wrong, it isn't the point that I'm talking about. The fault is of FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. There's no other way to spin that, because if they were running a stable company, you wouldn't be able to put them under or put them into a deficit by selling off like a portion of their, essentially a portion of their security token, by the way, the FTT token that they've used to sell to raise money for themselves, which also isn't being highlighted here because, in my opinion, exchange tokens are blatant security tokens, because you literally can only use it on that site, and if the site doesn't work, doesn't go up in value, then if the site doesn't increase with users, then that can't go up in value. So they are securities tokens, but the SEC aren't even putting that label on FTX or FTT tokens, even though people are even calling them Samcoin. Like, there's something heavily wrong, and it's just in the face of everybody, and I just hope that something happens with it. And I don't really get why Kevin O'Leary is so passionate about it, because even if he has a massive investment in FTX, and he's saying, yeah, I might look like an idiot or whatever, like, you look even more of an idiot if you're taking the stance that you're taking now, in my opinion. Like, I don't understand the logic. I understand what he's trying to say, but he is probably, my best guess, with my tinfoil hat on now, conspiracies, he's probably getting paid by some higher ups to push like we said a few weeks ago, to push the limelight onto Binance. Like, let's take the limelight away from our American company and let's push it onto Binance. Binance are the ones who did this. Binance did that. They're the bad guys. Sam Bankman-Fried was just a guy from America who was really clever. Even in this, he said, two amazing companies in terms of growth. No, Sam Bankman-Fried's company is not amazing. You've got probably people, like I said the other week, who have killed themselves for losing all their money in FTX. Like, how is that an amazing company? Yes, it grew fast, but so did loads of things. It doesn't mean they're amazing. Like, so do Ponzi schemes, so do like BitConnect for in 2017, but no one's sitting around going, oh yeah, BitConnect was the best investment ever. No, it was a complete scam. Stupid.
It's ridiculous, man. It actually is ridiculous how he's coming out and say that. I agree with you. I think there's something else to it. Whether it's like just due to his deals with FTX, whether they're still funding him or something like that, there's no way someone with any brain cell will come out and say FTX is a brilliant company when it's public information why they failed. Like you said, like, for example, what we're going to speak about in a few minutes is like Binance. There's a lot of FUD with Binance. Okay, so yes, CZ highlighted some flaws within FTX. What about all this news that's been coming out with Binance over the past week or two? Like, all this FUD surrounding Binance's proof of reserves, the audit that they had with Mazars, which again we're going to speak about. But why hasn't that FUD affected Binance in the same way CZ's FUD affected FTX? Do you know what I mean? So if it was the same,
yeah, and
it just kind of highlights it's just because of the structure of the company.
On that exact point, okay, let's say all the FUD's right, and that makes Binance go bankrupt. Let's say that's the case. I doubt people will come out and said, oh, the reason Binance went bankrupt is because of the FUD. No, it isn't. The reason Binance will have gone bankrupt is because they probably run a bad book the same way that FTX did. That's exactly the point that I'm making. The reason FTX have gone bankrupt isn't because of what Binance have done, poking coal in the fire. Just the same way as now people are poking and pointing the finger at Binance. If they run a bad book and they're over collateralized or over leveraged, sorry, if they then go bankrupt, that isn't because people were pointing the finger at them. That's because they were over leveraged.
Yeah, literally, there's no way you can argue about it, really. Do you know what I mean? But do you want to speak about this one? I think
still trying to in Congress.
I know. It's just it's ridiculous. I've watched the clip this morning, but I didn't read too much into it because like when I just read something like that's just blatant nonsense like that, I just try not to pay attention to it because it's just, I know it's ridiculous. It's just, there's nothing you can do about that. But
yeah. Last little thing on that, though, I just want to quickly go on to. I don't know if you're going to talk about it there, but also within that conference, like you looked a bit further up, I think, like Senator Warren was talking about and trying to shed her bad light on crypto like she always does, and Kevin O'Leary did actually say some sensible things. Like, I don't think the only reason I don't like him anymore is because of this tie with FTX. I don't think he's honest, in my opinion. But he's still obviously a smart man in a lot of things that he does, and he just says, well, let's just have the same regulation for crypto as we do for everything else. And that's basically what he's saying, because she tries to draw the point that crypto is used for fraud or whatever, And do they need stricter regulation, or should they have less regulation? And Kevin O'Leary's like, no, let's just use the same one. But then I do want to say one last thing on this, which has kind of surprised me, even though like we know that Cynthia Lummis, who's a senator, and Pat Toomey, who's a senator, are both pretty pro crypto anyway, and both have their own different bills. It has been apparent that some of the narrative that's been driven from this meeting is that of like pro crypto, in terms of like saying, okay, well, it's not actually a crypto problem, it's a fraud problem. It's not the underlying asset of crypto, it's the problem of the fraud with the person who's controlling their centralized exchange.
Sorry, I'm trying to close tabs here while she's speaking. Just ignore me. Computer's struggling here, guys. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about. But yeah, we'll move swiftly on from that. Well, kind of related to it, actually. Well, it is related to it because it's a speculation. It's a bit more speculation. You know, we love speculation here when it comes to report SEC stuff. But it's just quite interesting, I think, because I feel like if you read into it, whether you see it as speculation or whether you're actually just trying to read it as like we kind of say educated guesses kind of thing. So we've seen obviously the CFTC, SEC and the DOJ come after SBF, putting down their charges on to him basically. But one thing that this Twitter account highlighted was, for example, let's look at the CFTC. They called within their lawsuit, or whatever you want to call it. Let me just close this because it keeps making a noise. They specifically said commodities such as Bitcoin, Ether, and USDT, i.e. Tether, right? And there's an article out there which specifically shows an executive from the CFTC stating that the only crypto that should be deemed as a commodity is Bitcoin. So that's one interesting point, that they're classing ETH and Tether under that now as well. If you relate that to the Ripple and SEC case, we've got these Hinman emails about the ETH pass. Whether that comes to light, we've yet to see. And you've got the SEC who focused on fraud on investors in FTX, where they're normally the first one to jump on anything where someone's abusing like some sort of security law. Again, is this down to the fact that SBF himself has donated X amount to Congress? Again, that's another speculation point. But what I'm trying to say is, if we relate it to this, which where is it? Charles Hoskinson in AMA earlier on this week revealed that he heard a rumor that there's going to be a potential settlement within the SEC versus Ripple case, which is actually today, December 15th. It's December 15th right now. However, it's only 1 o'clock here in the UK, so I think the US are just like waking up. I'm not sure what time it is there. Probably 9, coming up to 9 a.m. there. So if you link these together, again, speculative hats on here. I just find it interesting how the CFTC and SEC have gone about this SBF lawsuits or charges that they've put on him, the way they've worded certain things, and then we've also got rumors like this coming out here.
Yeah,
it's a bit of speculation.
It's an interesting time for this rumor. Like, the only thing that I don't really get about it is why he would say it if there was no news. He's got to have heard something, whatever that might be, whether there's a lot of weight on it or not. Like, we had a quick conversation offline, like almost a joking conversation. What percentage chance do you put on it? You said 7%, I said 2%. Like, I don't think it's going to happen, but it is interesting because he's got nothing to gain. Like, he's got nothing to gain by saying it. What's he going to get? A few clicks online. You can get that anyway. He gets millions of views and interactions all the time. And what's he got to lose? Well, he's going to start another fight with the XRP community if he's being an idiot again. And last time that happened, the price of Cardano dropped massively. So why would he do it? Doesn't make sense.
Well, like there's more hours in this day. If we do see a settlement, right? Who knows? The only reason I said 7% is because I'm comparing it to like all these other rumors we've had with a potential settlement being in the pipeline. And like you said, I just think it's interesting timing when you look at the way that the CFTC are wording certain things, classing more cryptos as a commodity, and the fact that the SEC didn't just go straight in for the kill with this whole securities argument that they normally rise. But like I said, this is pure speculation. And
there are a couple of extra potentials. Like he said in a Twitter Spaces that the reason that he heard it was going to be this date specifically is because the judge goes on recess tomorrow, so she was going to get the decision in before she goes on a break. And you also have to take into consideration that 95% of SEC cases settle. The 2-year anniversary of the Ripple case is only like a week away, and if we're waiting for summary judgment, that comes in March. So we've only got between now and March for a settlement anyway. And if they're on holiday for a month of it, then it's only like 3 month a 3 month period. So it is potential. Like I'm not saying
This
that.
is what I'm saying.
Like I'm not saying that it's not. Like I think also I'm probably extra negative on it because like it's almost seemed like it's never going to happen, but that's just emotion.
Yeah. Just to add to that as well, like so hopefully this loads. We report on like pretty much every week now that Gensler's under so much like pressure. This is another reason why, to add to that fuel of potential settlement coming, is that another Congress person has come out and made public comments about Gary Gensler, saying that the work he's doing is flawed with in the fact that he doesn't provide clarity for the crypto space, etc. So you've got all this stuff with the way that they've worded the SBF charges. You've got the fact that Judge goes on recess and that they settle prior to the 2-year anniversary, etc. Then you've got more pressure coming on to Gary Gensler and the way that he's kind of dealing with the whole regulation of crypto as well. So it's just another thing to add into that fire, and that's why I put it at 7%, because I think right now it's probably the highest chance that we've had of a settlement. This isn't me just moonboying, because I'm normally quite negative when it's come to XRP and the way that people are saying, it's going to be settled by this date, etc. I've been quite reluctant to say that it has, but I think there's a good chance that, so maybe not today, or maybe after the research, when they come back from after their month, I think we could potentially see a settlement fairly quickly, because I just feel like with all the regulation that's coming in, potentially Q1, Q2 of next year as well, that people are they need to hurry up. That's what I'm trying to say. And one thing they need to hurry up with is this case, because it's going to set precedent for the whole crypto industry when it comes to regulation. So when they release this framework, it needs to be in line with what's happening with this court case. So in my opinion, they need this court case to be done and dusted way before they start releasing stuff about their regulation. So
yeah, I agree.
That's just my 2 pence on it.
Well, yeah, if this court case, like, if it went to trial or it went to summary judgment, they were going to say they were going to release the regulation like the month after. It went to summary judgment, and then it was like had the opposite judgment from the judge of what they had included in their regulation. They'd have to scrap the regulation and start again.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. This is why this court case is so big, and this is why everyone's been saying it from day one of this lawsuit, in terms of the impact it has, not just on Ripple. It's for the whole crypto space and the whole regulation side to it, which is going to be make or break for crypto. So this is why so much weight lies on this court case. So they need to hurry up, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm not just saying that because I hold XRP. Obviously, it would be nice for this to be done and dusted sooner rather than later, but who knows, man? Honestly, it's just, like I said in previous weeks, it's one of those where the only thing we can do now is just wait for news to come out. Indeed. Whether it's a settlement, whether it does go to summary judgment. Let's wait and see now with this.
And like I said on Twitter earlier, if it does settle today, what are you gonna do? Wrong answers only.
Right. Go over to Twitter. See all of you guys post a comment on that tweet. I'm interested to read it. But it'll be a madness if it settled today. It would be a madness. For his XRP holders anyway.
Yep.
If it's a good settlement.
Yeah. A lot of ifs.
It's a settlement. But we'll move on. Like I said, we're going to discuss Binance. We'll discuss Binance because, again, this is another thing as well. Like, I don't really want to speak about Binance next week either, even though we probably will end up, unless something big breaks, because I just feel like it's just repeating itself by now, because more FUD, or potential FUD anyway, because it all stems back from the audit that they had done on their accounts when everyone was releasing their proof of reserves. I think Binance used Mazers, which people criticized straight away, saying, they're not an established audit firm. They didn't really show much from Binance's reserves. Like they declassified certain amount of things. They didn't publicize X amount of information, etc. So that's when it all started. And then earlier on this week, Binance halted withdrawals of USDC. And people jumped on it straight away, took it straight to Twitter. Everyone knew about it straight away. There's a bit of a drop in the Binance coin as well, just because people were so scared about it. But yet again, CZ came straight onto Twitter and was fairly transparent about it and said some of it was done for a bank, and obviously they weren't open for that time period that they initially withdrew it from. So that's why there was a pause in withdrawals. So that there was an explanation behind it, yet everyone jumped straight onto it, saw tweets left, right and center saying this and that about Binance. Like I said, I can't sit here and say 100% with my chest that Binance are 100% clear and they're fine, because who actually knows what's going on. But it just highlights the fact that we've said this episode and last week, that there's just so much FUD. People just after the clicks at the moment, trying to inject more fear into the market, playing with people's emotions, etc. So just another reminder to be careful what you believe anyway with certain tweets. But whilst we're on the topic and whilst we're on these sources, this kind of came out. I saw someone's YouTube and they were speaking about these texts like this. It's coming from this Twitter account here. In fact, I've got it open in the next tab. It's not really a credible source. I'm not going to pretend like it's someone who's respected within the space. Not saying that, not discrediting his information, but basically saying within this message to this Twitter account here, Dylan Leclerc, that Binance are in trouble. We've got execs leaving, etc. Again, more FUD, more rumors, people are fleeing, etc. It's not going well there. And you add this to with the USDC stuff, it doesn't look good for Binance as like a outside perspective, as like a retail investor who doesn't really spend too much time looking into crypto. So take from that as you will, but to me, it's not really the most credible source out there. So I wouldn't really read too much into it. But main point of it, there's still a credible amount of FUD out there, whether it be with Binance or SBF. So just be careful what you're reading. And then again, this whole thing about have they got enough liquidity to deal with these withdrawals? Nearly 40k Bitcoin, and then I think it was 2 billion, which actually they updated here to like 3 billion. But like Will tweeted, I don't know if I should have put his tweet up, but Will tweeted on his account saying it accounts for, what was it, 6%? Did you say?
Yeah.
6% of their reserves or something around that. So it's, in the grand scheme of things, is it really affecting Binance? Probably not. If it's only 6%. Yes, 6% is still quite a lot, but it's not. Binance, they're still here. Nothing's come out. There's no bank run happening, and it kind of goes back to our point that we made earlier with all this FUD out there about Binance and how much has been withdrawn. For example, these apparent allegations here. There's no bank run happening on Binance right now. Why is that? For me, just as a basic point of view, it's because there's obviously, when we compare it to FTX and the way that company is structured and the way that they conduct business, it's a lot more legit over at Binance, basically.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's a lot. I think
6% is a lot, and if that continues, then it obviously puts more pressure. They might not be completely collateralized. They might be over leveraged. They might have a lot, but they also have 62 billion on their balance sheet, and that's clear and that's there that we can see. Whether, like we said, it's nothing without liability, so we don't know what their leverage is, or if they're leveraged. Mm-hmm. And then people also draw on the fact that like I drew on literally the first week. I think I was probably the first person to say this actually, like on YouTube, on Twitter, whatever, is that 60% of their balance sheet is either BNB, USDT, or BUSD. I said that straight away. So people always have speculated the USDT is bad, so let's pretend it is. If BNB is their equivalent of FTT token, whatever, and then BUSD is their stable coin, obviously within that is their USDC, etc. They changed that, which I thought was weird at the time. I said this 3 or 4 weeks ago, but we can't prove any of it. Even if that is true, you're still going to have to put over $20 billion worth of pressure on just to start to see some cracks in Binance, in my opinion. That's if all them ifs are true. So there's a lot of ifs for anything to happen at all to Binance. And in that time, you've also got to have the if of crypto not going up in value, because if crypto goes up in value, their balance sheet increases. So there's another if to throw onto the if fire. And if we get to that point, yeah, fair. Or if Tether collapses, fair. But they're things that you can't, in my opinion, you can't miss the bottom of crypto for. Like, if you then take this to on-chain analysis, specifically, like, if we look at the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges, and I don't know if you've talked about this in the newsletter, we haven't talked about this yet, but if you look at the amount of Bitcoin on exchanges, it's like an all-time low, because everyone's removing their Bitcoin and crypto from exchanges right now, and that normally marks like the bottom. So it's like you're literally potentially missing the bottom because of FUD that we don't know is or isn't a problem. And yeah, I have some very credible sources and people that I talk to a lot, and they massively believe that Binance is an issue, but I don't agree. I don't agree. I have my own opinion, and my personal opinion is that whether they're doing something right or wrong, whether they're fraudulent or not fraudulent, they're too big right now to have that much pressure put on them for them to go under, coupled with the fact that when FTX go under, a lot of their customers probably go to Binance. I think there's a lot of things that even if they were shady, which I'm not saying they are or they aren't, that they would still survive. At least this for this period.
Yeah, I think if they do survive this period, which hopefully they do, because a collapse of Binance would just mean a massive capitulation in the market, basically. But if they do survive this, the positive you got to take from it is any exchange who survives this particular bear market, just because how bad it's been with all these collapses, all these domino effects, will probably be here for God knows how long now. If you survive this and you manage to make it until the next bull run, you cement yourself in crypto as like a definitely a key player, which I see Binance as already anyway. But
Yeah, and I do want to throw actually one more extra thing in there is that like when like this week we've seen the founder of Tron, which I also don't really like Tron. Personal opinion, no like financial advice. I don't really like Tron. We've seen the founder of Tron like back in CZ. So there's another person like back like that. So maybe he's got a 62 billion balance sheet. Maybe he's over collateralized. And all of a sudden, if you've got like the founder of Tron and I think the founder of Huobi and maybe even some contacts with OKX, all gonna like help bail Binance out because no one wants another exchange like this to go bankrupt. So
yes,
so you're gonna have to liquidate the whole of crypto. And I'm not saying it's impossible,
that's spot on. That is.
but it's a big ask. Like
It's not saying.
I don't know.
It's like trying to bank with the biggest bank in the traditional finance. Like, obviously they've got the government to like cash them out almost. But within Binance, we have similar. We don't have a government. The government aren't really going to bail anyone out. But it's in everyone other big company exchange, whoever you are, it's in their best interest to keep Binance stable right now because
Otherwise, your balance
if they
sheet gets
did go
destroyed.
under, everyone else gets destroyed. Literally, everyone else gets destroyed, and it would take years and years and years and years for crypto to recover from that.
Yeah, and I also want to say exactly what I said in the first week. The only way Binance go down is if they start getting pressure from the US government somehow. I don't know how that happens, but I said this as soon as we saw these issues with FTX. I said the US are going to try and take pressure off themselves. They're going to point the finger at Binance. But the only way Binance go under with $20 billion or more of pressure is if the US government step in and somehow try and pressure them. And I don't know how or if that can even happen because they have Binance US, but the worst, what they're going to do, stop them from trading in the US. They'll just be like, all right, I'll just close Binance US down. It's not going to destroy Binance, in my opinion. So I don't know how they could do that. But, I mean, I'm sure there's a way. I'm sure there's a way because we live in this world and the way the world's run, and I don't want to get too much into that, but I don't know how they could put $20 billion worth of pressure onto Binance. Because we've already seen the most that social media almost can do, which is $6 billion.
Yeah. Well, like you said, I wouldn't put it past the US to like even try that as well, because it's in their best interest, like you said, to get the spotlight out of America right now because they're just not looking good. Even in traditional finance or crypto, it's not looking good for the US at the moment. It's just a bit of a mess
I already
over
think
there.
they are because I don't think Kevin O'Leary comes off his own back and says exactly what he's saying without being prompted to say that. I don't think anyway.
Yeah.
Not someone of that intelligence and that caliber managing wealth for countries. I'd be so neutral if I was in that position, even if I believe something heavily, I'd be the most neutral person on the planet because you don't want to paint yourself in that picture as if you're managing funds from literally from countries.
He has tarnished his reputation now, hasn't he?
Massively.
Really, from the comments he's made. So, in order for him to do that, there's got to be a reason. There has to be something, whether it's money, like I said, if he's being paid, like you said, if he's being paid by someone to say something like that, to take the spotlight of FTX, or well, that's the only reason. That's the only reason why an intelligent person would make such comments and maybe jeopardize their reputation is money, because money this is what these guys want. It's just like loads of money. Everyone wants that money. Money makes the world turn around. Sorry, so there's more to it in my eyes because you won't make ridiculous statements like that. Even I wouldn't make ridiculous statements like that. Even you wouldn't say something ridiculous like that in our current status. So
yeah,
it's a tough one. A lot of speculation, but try not to speculate too much. But that's it for the news this week. Price chart. Quickly dive into Bitcoin if it does want to load. It does want to load. Now we can see here. So obviously we had CPI there. We overtook the MAs on a daily basis. It was looking good at one point. Then obviously we had the FOMC, neutral news. Like you said, it's regarded as negative news now. So I deep dive into Bitcoin in the newsletter actually, but I will quickly cover it anyway. I just think we're going to probably trade back down to this high 16K range whilst, the RSI bounces off its SMA. Then I'm expecting the run back up to 19 to 20K, in my opinion. Whatever happens after that, we need to take over these MAs. It's because here we've got massive resistance here between 21 and 20k, 19k, and we've also got these 3 MAs which are just diving down at the moment. So as soon as we get above that, then it looks a lot different. The markets do, but right now we're still in this period here which we need to get out of. But nothing new. There's nothing here. Still basically sideways for the past month since the FTX collapse. But yeah, that's a wrap. And until next week, we'll catch you guys later.
Peace up. 8 and out.